In this war, the proportion of what Israel's doing is actually pretty good. Now, it's a very hard situation because Hamas is very much embedded in Gaza. They have tunnels who run since 2005. They've been building tunnels under Gaza. All everybody here should know is that Hamas took babies hostage. Does anybody disagree with that?
The very terrorism that you guys condemn for your asymmetrical warfare that you use to justify killing kids is the same terrorism that you guys utilize to create the state of Israel. And this is what I mean when I say Israelis don't value Palestinian life. They only value Israeli life. On one end, you're making a big deal of babies taken hostage, which is deplorable. But then when I tell you, well, there's babies getting bombed over here, you don't care. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Can you tell me what the study was that you referenced before, the 377,000 from Harvard?
Sure. So this information came out from Harvard about a week or two ago, and what they basically did was they figured out that between, because right now it's about 50,000 confirmed, right? But that doesn't account for all the people that are missing, and that's obviously very feasible because they've been bombing Gaza significantly, and there's a lot of people under the rubble. So they've estimated somewhere around 337,000 total that are missing.
Who's they?
Or confirmed dead. Well, it comes from.
You don't know who they is?
You're talking about the health ministry of
No,
Hamas?
that's not who did that study. That's wrong.
Okay,
so I want everybody to listen to this right now.
Sure, go ahead, buddy.
The study that he is referencing is not a study from Harvard University. It's part of a database that's run by Harvard. It's not done by Harvard. And the actual person who did that study has said the data has been misinterpreted. So if he is speaking that confidently without knowing what he is talking about, can you really trust anything that he has to say? Look, there's room for debate on Palestine and Gaza. There is room to debate if Israel's war strategy is justified or not. But when someone sits down, they should know what they're talking about before they spout that kind of dishonest propaganda. What you said about the study is absolutely wrong. It is stunning that you can sit there with that much confidence and not even know the most basic facts about it.
You know what's interesting?
It's not from the Gaza Health Ministry. It's not from Harvard. You said both those things based on that.
You said it was run by
nobody.
Harvard. Did you not just say it was run by Harvard?
No, I didn't say it was run by Harvard. It was on a Harvard data repository. I'm not making any claims about.
Harvard.
Hold on, no, it's not.
Harvard, buddy.
That's not the way.
That is Harvard.
If it's by Harvard, it means that Harvard researchers would publish the study. It was not published by Harvard researchers. I am not telling you guys to believe anything in terms of what the numbers are. Although the Gaza Health Ministry says 50,000, there's debates about the numbers. I'm saying that what he's saying is wrong, and that should put that what he is saying in jeopardy. It should make you doubt it. He's sitting here spewing it like he knows what he's talking about. He does not know what he's talking about. Look it out. It's absolutely wrong. It was two Israeli researchers, and the Israeli... Hold on. And the Israeli researchers said that the data was misinterpreted. Again, there's room for debate on this subject. This person doesn't know what he's talking about. I guarantee you he will not play this on his video.
No, we're live right now, actually.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear. Look, I'm saying to everybody right now, there's room for debate, but we have to be smart about this. You must ask what his sources are. You must use the Socratic method, back him down, because he does not know what he is talking about. Just right here on a study that he sourced,
can I respond
he is
now?
absolutely wrong. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I respond? Okay, no, so this is a good tactic. I actually like what you're doing here.
The tactic is honesty.
No. What you're doing here is you're playing on words, and you're saying, well...
I'm not playing on words.
Bro.
No.
I let you speak.
Go ahead.
I let you speak.
You're right, you did.
So what you're doing is you're focusing on a minutiae detail and trying to say that the totality of what I'm saying isn't true. But the reality is simply this. You're focusing on quarters when I'm talking about $100 bills in the grand scheme of things. You're stepping over $100 bills to pick up quarters. Now, let's go ahead and have it, because you said there's room for debate, right?
Absolutely.
Let's have that debate. So you're attacking, it's not Harvard, it's Harvard run or whatever. Let's deal with the overall reality. We know that there's roughly 2 million plus people that live in Gaza, 2.3 roughly, right? And we know that 50,000 have been confirmed. Israel estimates somewhere around 15 to 20,000 have been Hamas fighters. So at best case for Israel, you've killed 30,000 innocent people. At best case, okay? That's indefensible. So if we want to go ahead and go on Harvard and there was Harvard run, so it wasn't really Harvard, we're focusing on things that don't really matter. The reality is you guys drop bombs on kids. And if you want to go ahead and try to minimize it and say it's not 300,000, it's only 30,000. Well, let me ask you this. You guys have been bombing several Middle Eastern countries, over 1,200 Israelis. So tell me who's really the evil person here. And it gets even better.
Take your time.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody can hear.
No problem.
So the 1,200 Israelis, let's go ahead and dissect that number because everything stems from October 7th. So we need to analyze October 7th, right? On October 7th, roughly 1,200 Israelis were killed. Would you agree with that?
I would agree.
Okay. Roughly 400 of those people were IDF soldiers. According to international law, that makes them enemy combatants. Fair game. Now, let me be clear about this. I actually value Israeli life. I want Israelis to live, and I don't want them to die. I'm a big proponent of peace. This is why I'm anti-war. But the problem here is that Israelis don't value life to the same degree of the Palestinians. Now, with that said, roughly 400 were killed. That leaves us with about 800. Now, this is where things get weird. We know that there was a music festival, and we know that there was a lot of pandemonium on that day. We also know, according to Yoav Gallant, your defense minister, that something called the Hannibal Directive was activated on that day. For those of you guys that aren't aware, the Hannibal Directive is a directive that the Israeli government employs whenever there's an attack where they are authorized to kill IDF soldiers and or Israeli citizens. Now, I know someone's going to say, well, no, it's only for IDF soldiers. Well, guess what? In Israel, mandatory service is required with IDF.
You said a lot of things.
No, hold on.
You said a lot of different things.
Let me finish because I really need to explain this because...
but it's many different subjects. I need to respond to one thing at a time.
Sure. But this is for the audience. This is for the audience because...
So you don't want to hear my answers?
No, I will hear it.
You keep changing the subject.
My friend,
with lots of different
you got to understand that the people that are here listening might not know.
Let me respond to what you've said so far.
Hold on. I'm going to wrap up right now.
Sure.
So that leaves us with 800 people. We know that the Hannibal Directive was activated that day. This has been confirmed by Yoav Gallant and Israeli media. So in other words, we don't know how many people Hamas killed versus how many people the IDF killed. That's very important because Israel's bombing campaign is not proportionate to the amount of Israelis that were killed by Hamas. I'll turn it to you.
Okay, there's a few different things here, and thank you for that answer. Look, the first thing I want to point out is that when he says you guys did it, I'm not Israeli, I'm American. Jewish people can be American too. The second thing is he made this, what I see as a nonsensical analogy in terms of apples and oranges kind of thing. I want to go back to the study itself. It wasn't just some small thing. He said the study was from Harvard. It wasn't. And the actual researchers of the study said that the data had been misinterpreted. So let's just put that out of the way. In terms of the actual number of Palestinians who have died, look, it is a subject I want to be very sensitive about because it is horrific, the death that has taken place in Gaza.
What do you estimate it to be?
Hold on.
What do you estimate it to be?
I would follow, I would follow the IDF's answer, but let's go with the Gaza Health Ministry's answer combined with exactly the stats you took. Let's just go with that.
I'm going off Israel.
No, I know. I'm saying let's go with your numbers. Let's go with your numbers.
Yeah, Israel said
Let me finish.
Yeah,
okay, so look, the deaths in Gaza are horrific. No doubt about it. But can you name for me an urban war where there has been a better proportion of soldiers to civilians who have died? And that's, by the way, that's saying that we can't even really determine how many people have been Hamas. You can let me go on my points because you did all your points, okay? Now, every urban warfare expert that I know says that actually Israel's proportion of civilians to death is pretty good. Now, you can deny that. You can say, for instance, John Spencer, he's a pro-Israel guy, but look, he's an urban warfare expert at West Point, and that's what he says, that the proportion is good. Andrew Fox as well. So they actually say that it's actually an efficient war. But I don't want to make light of civilian deaths in Gaza, but that's not to say that what people here should know. You can disagree with what Israel's doing in Gaza. You can disagree with the war, but let's make sure to know that Israel isn't just dropping bombs without doing anything. Israel actually has an entire process they go through before they drop any bombs in Israel. Again, you can still disagree with it, but Israel does more than just drop leaflets. They triangulate the area, they monitor the amount of citizens going in and out, and then they try to issue military operations based on what international law says. So in other words, if a certain amount of civilians are seen going in and out of an area or in and out of a house, they won't issue the strike. But yes, if the civilians are under a certain number, then they will. It all has to do with sort of a determination based on what international law says. So you could disagree with the war, but Israel, they're not just wantonly bombing. They are doing a calculation. They are trying to monitor things. They are dropping leaflets. They are trying to warn civilians. They are trying to move civilians out of the way. And again, urban warfare experts have written articles on something. They say that actually, if you look at the wars throughout the world, civilians die en masse in every war throughout the world, okay? But in this war, the proportion of what Israel's doing is actually pretty good. Now, it's a very hard situation because Hamas is very much embedded in Gaza. They have tunnels who run since 2005. They've been building tunnels under Gaza. It's very hard to fight plainclothes soldiers in within Gaza when they have tunnels to retreat to. It's actually a very hard thing to do. Remember, Israel has hostages in Gaza. They're trying to fight Hamas. They're trying to defeat Hamas. Yes, civilians die, and it's horrific. There's no change in that, because that's Palestinian life is life. It is valuable life. And everybody here should be sickened by any life that it gets taken. And Palestinians deserve better. Even the Palestinians who want me dead, I think they deserve better. I would like them to have a better life. I know a lot of Israelis feel that way too. In terms of the 1,200, look, the Hannibal Directive conspiracy, it might be that Israel killed some people, by accident trying to take out Hamas. But hold on. The fact of the matter is that Hamas doesn't even deny what they did. As a matter of fact, Hamas leaders have even gone on TV and said, we will do this again and again and again. Keep in mind what they did. This isn't like Israel, which is at least trying to mitigate civilian casualties while having an enemy target. Hamas went into Israel. They slaughtered people who were not serving in the military, children. They took babies hostage. They took the BBOS kids hostage. The BBOS kids were killed in Gaza. They are babies. Hamas wasn't trying to go around Israel to kill a soldier when they killed those babies. They just killed those babies, reportedly by strangulation, and the mother. They young women, okay? According to various testimony, and UN women, which Israel will say hates them, on December 1st of 2023, it took them a long time, even came out and said that they were very disturbed by the type of sexual violence that took place on October 7th. So the difference is that Hamas went into Israel looking to kill and slaughter civilians. That is the difference. Israel is trying to get its hostage back and defeat a terrorist group that is terrorizing the region. Again, as a last point, you can disagree with that war and say, I don't think that war is necessary. I do to an extent. I have my disagreements with it up and down, but I do to an extent. But war sucks, but that's the reality of the world. And if we let Hamas stay in power, this will go on forever.
Okay, so you made a bunch of points there, and I didn't want to interrupt you.
Well, I have to respond to all the things that
sure, no problem. That's why I didn't want to interrupt and have a respectful discussion. So the first argument you made was this is the most, I guess, the best ratio of, enemy combatants to civilian deaths. Well, look, under normal circumstances, I might accept that. But here's the problem. Israel has the ability to do precision strikes. Israel has one of the best intelligence components in the world. Hold on one sec.
Take your time.
So, since Israel has some of the best intelligence components where they're able to do targeted strikes, killing their adversaries in foreign countries, I will not accept the fact that their ratio is good. People could go ahead and say, oh, in modern warfare, it's the best ratio. You don't stab somebody in the back, pull it out 3 inches, and call that progress. That's not acceptable, especially with a military as capable as them. Also, if we're going to use the whole modern warfare ratio, by that logic, Hamas is more moral than the IDF, right? So that actually hurts your argument. Second, you mentioned the Bebas family. Tragedy. The reality is that they were killed by...
Not a tragedy, a murder.
Yeah.
They murdered babies.
Yes, that murder wasn't...
Say they murdered babies.
No. I'll tell you who...
Did Hamas murder babies?
Actually, no.
Okay.
No. There was only...
Guys, I think that's pretty dishonest.
Hold on. Because you even said to yourself they kidnapped babies. You didn't even make the claim that they killed babies.
No, I did say they killed them.
Only one baby was killed.
No, they
on
killed
October
both
7th.
kids.
No,
they didn't kill them on October 7th necessarily. They killed them in Gaza.
Okay, fair.
It's easier to go back and forth on one point for 1 point.
They died in Gaza, right?
No, they didn't die in Gaza. They were murdered in Gaza. Babies and the mom.
All right, I agree with you. Now the real question is, who murdered them?
Hamas.
No, it was IDF. They died from airstrikes. See, this is the thing, and let me tell you why. Before you say, I don't agree with that. Let's go ahead and have a logically sound argument here. Hamas has an inferior military. They don't have an air force. They don't have the structure of U.S. backing and government aid. The only levers they have are the hostages. So those hostages are worth their weight in gold. Why would Hamas kill their only leverage? It doesn't make sense, logically speaking. They're getting destroyed right now, and that's the only thing that they have. So
I can answer that
just
question.
Off of common sense,
I can answer that question.
They're not killing their hostages. Because if they were just trying to kill hostages, they'd all be dead by now. A majority of the hostages that died have died from the blockade, not being able to get aid, and they've died by Israeli motives, by bombing and starvation. Hamas aren't going to kill the only leverage they have, man. It's just common sense.
Well, you could say it's just common sense.
Yeah.
But, your common sense is then different than my common sense. Look, the reason that Hamas would do what they did is the same reason that Hamas would go into Israel and slaughter teenage girls. It's the same reason. The kind of people that you need to run a terrorist group are crazy. They will do violent things. They have a lower tolerance for violence. Whatever it is, all everybody here should know is that Hamas took babies hostage. Does anybody disagree with that? They took babies hostage. And those babies, along with many other hostages, did not come back from Gaza alive.
May I respond?
No, hold on, because you made one other point. He made a point about the ratio. So I want to note something. So he came back and said something about normal circumstances and the ratio. First of all, I want to note that he did not come up with an example of a better ratio. He did not. Please note that, okay? Does everybody listening? He did not come up with an example of an urban war, any war, with a better civilian to combatant ratio. You must note that.
Because killing innocent people is never defensible.
He doesn't have an example.
Killing innocent people is never defensible.
Look, guys,
killing innocent people is not defensible.
Be intellectually honest. You can be against me. You can be against Israel. Guys, he doesn't have an example. The second thing he says is Israel could do precision strikes. Look, I think a lot of people Israel has very good technology. Thank God. The Iron Dome can block, missiles from landing in Israel. But people have this idea about what advanced militaries are capable of, that precision strikes. It means this missile kind of comes down, flies in the window, goes into the next room and takes out. That's not what a precision strike is. A precision strike means that you use weapons and technology that mitigate as much casualties as possible. It doesn't mean there's no casualties. It doesn't mean civilians doesn't die. So that's why it's important to look at the actual civilian to combatant death ratio and then say, hey, are there examples? It's fair to say, are there examples in other urban warfare or warfare in general to start? And then we can look at urban war that actually show more efficient a civilian to combatant death ratio than Israel's. He didn't come up with an example. So I think that speaks for itself.
I find it interesting that you're making a big deal, right? And rightfully so, by the way. I'm not trying to undermine it. You made a big deal about babies being taken hostage, which is obviously deplorable. But then, in the next breath, you don't care that Palestinian babies are getting killed.
No,
I do. Isn't it? So
I've already delineated the difference.
There's two standards here, right? And one end, you're okay with Israelis bombing babies because it's a good ratio. But on the other end, the justification for your bombing in the first place is from taking babies hostage. So your logic doesn't flow and it doesn't make sense.
I'll explain.
And I'll tell you why you have this logic. The thing is this. When Israelis frame their aggression towards Palestinians, it's self-defense and stopping terrorism. But the reality is that Israel is the most well-equipped, funded, and powerful terrorist organization in the world, backed by the United States. Let's look at the definition of terrorism. It is basically perpetuation of violence for a political ideology. Zionism is a political ideology. They kill people to promote Zionism, aka Israel. So again, if we're going to call Hamas terrorists, which I actually concede that they are, we also need to go ahead and keep it straight aboard and say the IDF were terrorists too. And it gets better because the IDF was created through Irgun, Haganah, and the Stern Gang, terrorist organizations. So the very terrorism that you guys condemn and use to justify your asymmetrical warfare. Hold on.
Go ahead.
The very terrorism that you guys condemn for your asymmetrical warfare that you use to justify killing kids is the same terrorism that you guys utilize to create the state of Israel. See how there's a double standard here? And this is what I mean when I say Israelis don't value Palestinian life. They only value Israeli life. On one end, you're making a big deal of babies taken hostage, which is deplorable. But then when I tell you, well, there's babies getting bombed over here, you don't care.
There's a lot of people on my side of the ball who will say, well, Israelis are doing everything they can. They're sending their own boys into Gaza to help move Palestinians around. And they actually do care about. I don't even get into that because I think that there are Palestinian lives being lost en masse. And that is a horrific thing. And nobody should make light of that. And everybody here should hope that Palestinians have a more decent future. Every single human being needs to work towards that. Okay, I've been to the Palestinian territories. I've met Palestinians, spoke what the news says about them. A lot of them are very decent people who just want a better future. I've met those people who don't want anything to do with Hamas or even the
We
Palestinian
only
Authority.
got a few minutes left.
I understand, but let me
Yeah,
respond.
because we got to be out of here at 12.
No problem. I appreciate you letting me. I give you credit for letting me speak so much. Look, I'm not okay with Palestinian babies dying either. It's horrific. But I did delineate the difference between the two, which is Hamas went in, purposely took babies, took them back to Gaza, and killed them. Israel was responding in self-defense to that attack by Hamas. And when they are trying, and hold on, well, I'm not done.
That's very important.
No, hold on.
Mention that.
When Israel is dropping bombs, they are not aiming at the babies. Okay, they are trying to take out the Hamas fighters. And as a final point, and you can have the final point, and I'll walk away, no problem. Look, guys, we live in a very, very difficult, complicated, brutal world full of mostly good people, but a lot of bastards. In order to operate this world and to build a world that people care about, where good people succeed, we have to be able to think about things in a very nuanced and intellectual way. We can't just sit here when we don't know what we're talking about in studies and other things and spout off. We have to be educated, and we have to understand when you are the leader of countries.
Hold
on, you have to make difficult decisions. You have to make military decisions. You have to make decisions that will lead to people's deaths. If we just simplify things to the black and white, Israel's dropping bombs and that's it. That's not critical
let me
thinking.
ask you this.
That doesn't lead to a better future
Fine,
for all of us.
Let's critically think. When did this war start?
October 7th.
Checkmate, my friend.
No, it's
checkmate.
Guys, is that checkmate? Come on, guys.
No, hold on.
Guys, if you don't like Israel, I don't mind. But let's have an intellectual debate. Let's have an intellectual debate. That's all I'm saying.
And the reason why, let me tell you why I did that. Every pro-Israeli Zionist always starts the conflict at October 7th.
I didn't start. No. I didn't start the conflict at October 7th.
All of your arguments, because here's the
you
thing.
said the war. You said this war.
Yes.
By definition, it started then. However, guys, Israel's not perfect. And he mentions the Irgun and stuff like that. That's sort of like the nuances of Israeli history.
Let's just get rid of the terrorism.
Look, no, I'm not getting rid of it. I'm not. Look, Israel's not clean throughout its history. We can't look. We obviously don't have time to go back and argue and litigate its history. I think in large part, yes.
Let me just respond.
I think the state of Israel is justified in existing and building the state. That's not to say there's no bad Israelis, evil things Israel did. I didn't say any of that, and I certainly condemn those things as well.
Sure, but again, because a lot of your arguments kind of stem from them invading, killing the people, etc. And what I'm arguing is that it didn't start October 7th. It started back in like 1917. This has been a conflict that's been going on.
The conflict didn't start October 7th. That's right.
Yes, it started way before that. So I think it's very important that we don't start the conflict on October 7th, because you guys have been systematically bombing Gaza for decades, and you guys call it cutting the grass. So the reality is...
Can I explain the cutting the grass? I can explain that.
No.
Well, you said cutting... I can explain to people what cutting the grass means.
Look, I'll go ahead and explain it. Basically what it is targeted attacks, right, on members of Hamas, so that they can kind of ensure that these people don't rise up and lead a revolution fair.
No, it's not.
That's basically what it is.
That's not a good definition,
that's
guys.
That's basically what it is. See how when we talk about Israelis killing, there's a justification, but when I talk about
who came
Hamas
up with the term cutting the grass?
That's Israelis.
Okay,
that's literally it's a pejorative
all I'm saying,
phrase.
I won't do it because for a second, guys, but I can explain to you better the term cutting the grass.
Okay, it's a pejorative phrase used by the Israelis to justify attacking Gaza, just like calling people that aren't Jews, Goyim, or Gentiles, etc. It's the same thing you guys don't like when people bring this out, because it's insider knowledge.
How much more time do we have?
But this is what it is. So, again, this conflict did not begin October 7th. Okay. It occurred way before that.
I agree.
But people like to use
October
7th. Hamas did not invade.
No, people like to use October 7th to explain why this war is happening.
Well, but
I don't think any reasonable person says the conflict started on October 7th.
But all of your arguments have been predated on that.
I didn't say. Did I say the conflict started October 7th?
No.
This war did.
All of your arguments have been stemmed from Hamas invading.
Well, let's go argument by. Can we relitigate all? I'm happy to relitigate every argument with you.
Well,
he said 1 minute. Look, I want to take the time to say this in case before I don't get the chance. Look, guys, you've heard what I said. What I want to take the time to do now is I do want to thank you because, despite the fact that I've seen you before, I don't agree with any of your views. I got to respect you for sitting here and letting me talk openly. I think you deserve sort of a hand from me for that. Like, you do deserve a hand for that. You let me talk openly. So I do respect that. I do think that is good for this country. And I really do hope that everybody here just tries to really think about these things in a critical, intellectual way. It's the most important thing we can do. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think these conversations are important because allow both parties to speak and they can go ahead and make their decision. Thank you so much.